Hi Capricorns, and welcome to your May 2022 General Tarot Forecast. This is Sky, coming on to give you a late night reading. I hope you're all doing really well. I'm very happy to be coming on and talking to you about May, which is a very conclusive type of energy. Okay, May 2022 is going to be super honest, and it's going to be giving us a kind of like double dose of truth, or a double dose of reality in the midst of, for some people, quite grand illusion. So that is quite a lot for some of us to handle, as I think many of us have an immense sense of challenge here and an immense sense of beauty as well. I think for you Capricorns, it can be really beautiful to start to get more precise and to start also to see how abundant the whole nature of what you have come into contact with is. Though I understand there is kind of a feeling of things being run down, or a feeling of things being, so abundant or so immense that we kind of question the significance of it. Again, when things kind of really stretch out, they start to kind of be difficult to really encapsulate or to define. So we have a need to define here for you in the month of May, and I think that you are going to do it. And I think that you also might have been trying for a long time, and it's very important not to get too overwhelmed. So you have the Devil, the Tower, the Nine of Swords coming up, and the Hermit. So this process of trying to figure things out on your own, or this process of being like the authoritative presence within a situation, whether it's at work, whether it's in your family, for example, being like the leader of your family, being the authority in a job. I feel that this is where most Capricorns are now, and people might be looking to you to figure something out or to make a decision for many. And I think that by June, the decision is made and you are going to have a little bit of an easier time. But yes, there is a decision here, and there is a need to understand why we have a certain ball and chain, or why we have a certain indecisiveness in the first place, which is usually a sign of some type of auric abrasion. And I'm seeing this at such a mass level. I've been talking about this in some of my readings, where many people are struggling with kind of like an auric wound, or their aura just isn't vibrating as highly as it was a few years ago. We've been dealing with a lot of collective burdens during the last 2 years, and that's really starting to show in 2022. So how can we, as Capricorns, work with that and heal those auric issues? Well, primarily for your sign, it is going to be about wholesome resolutions. So in the face of like dealing with too much weight, or dealing with too much heaviness, whether you have like too much on your plate, or whether you have like come into so much abundance that it can be difficult to manage, either we have to kind of create a new management system with like what we have and what we're like holding and what is so heavy, and we have to delegate or outsource some of that, or we need to move away from it, I feel, is one of the ways that we physically start to handle these auric issues. Also, it's important to start to let things go. There's kind of a societal glorification of having like the world on your back, or having such a like a strained kind of experience to like upkeep things, and then we start to like really romanticize these experiences of I don't know, like having so much duty or so much sense of like control over such a like quote unquote important thing, and then it's like hard, and there's like a kind of existential feeling of like, wow, I've got to serve as like a sort of like servant within a leadership experience, and it's like becoming a sort of tired story for a lot of people as a result of the 2020 mega Capricorn stellium that we had. And 2022, the month of May, is going to kind of change up that narrative a little bit, and we're going to be seeing like people who have just like a lighter experience, or who aren't having to be so subservient or so, I don't know, weighed down by other people's problems, being a lot luckier and being a lot wiser as well. So as Capricorns, it's good to get things less heavy. If you have a lot of Sagittarius in your chart, you probably are carrying the world on your shoulders here. And, that always creates that Nine of Swords Tower devil energy, because it's like you're further extended than any human should be if you're in that place. Sometimes when humans get really obsessed with the material plane, or, want to really build wealth, they basically just create these like heavy things they have to carry around with them. And there's a lot of illusions around that. So it's a good month to kind of crack that, or to crack that illusion. And how can you do that? You can think about times of your life where things have felt best. I've worked with a lot of people, in my capacity here, and I've worked with people of all different like wealth backgrounds and all different stages of life and ages within those demographics. And oftentimes I find that people, I don't know, felt better when they had less, or there's a certain like light point of like ownership, or a certain light point of having a certain amount where things feel pretty good. And I usually see for a lot of people, it's at a pretty small place, interestingly. And then there's a lot of like maybe dopamine connection to the idea of like wanting more or having more. But really, I think that this type of month shows us the allure of less, or the allure of lightness. I've worked with so many people who were eluded, or in a sort of elusive or illusion-based place of like wanting like a big esteemed position, or wanting a huge amount of wealth, and they get there and it's not what they ever thought it was, and it's in some way a game of shadows, or a game of illusions. And that's good for Capricorn to realize here, because it's one thing if you're super connected or super like purposeful within those careers, like that's great. But if it's not about that, it's about like attaining, or it's about status increase, that is not going to be fulfilling. So this month for Capricorn is just basically like a question of like, what do you want to value? What do you want to be doing every day? What do you want to be your purpose? Okay. And it's going to give you a lot of time, and a lot of maybe even falling away of certain dead energy, or dead leaves kind of falling. There's kind of an autumnal energy here, despite it being May, which is a little bit odd, but I do feel your energy to be quite autumnal here, and quite turnover oriented. So there's a turning point probably in the 4th week of May. And also with that turning point is a completely new adventure, or a completely new horizon. You have the 3 of Swords, the 2 of Cups, and a very strong catalyst experience in the 4th week. So I'm thinking that I want to prepare you guys for that quite advanced. Here, I want to prepare you for this in advance, where you will have the chance to like really embark on something in the 4th week, because of what changes, or because of how you have less, or because of how something falls away. So that's going to be what your entire month hinges upon. Also really look at anything that's like only doing something for the money, or only doing something for the future prospect, not for the now. Those things are going to start to feel very heavy at this time too. And that can induce a sort of like a value crisis, okay? Because a lot of us realize that we're in an area of loss, when it's not about purpose, it's about money, or it's not about, health, it's about sacrifice. And that is incompatible with the oncoming years, quite substantially incompatible with the oncoming years. So that might be the best thing to conclude before we get into the week to week, is like, we want to really see that our production, or our energy, has a connecting point to our purpose in the future that's very light and simple, and leads us to be credible within that sphere. And we want to make sure that we're maybe divesting from the needless frenetic generation of energy, or these time-spending habits, okay, that are coping mechanisms. So let's talk about your week-to-week Capricorns. Week number 1, 3 of Wands, rooted down by the Hermit. You have a beautiful opportunity in the 1st week of May to look at your oncoming horizons. There's a possibility of having a cancellation, or of having a freeing up of time. You are very lucky if that happens to you in the 1st week, because the universe is basically saying, here, take a little bit more time, take a little bit more energy, take a little bit more money even. Or here is perhaps a boss saying, here's a bonus. Here's a boss also saying, or an instructor saying, I'm canceling this assignment. You have more time. There's a feeling of like, okay, just The universe for you, Capricorn, is like, we want you to do well. We want you to like have some time to figure this out. So take that as a validation if you do have any like extra time, money, or energy in the first week of May, or at any point in May, that the universe wants you to figure some out. It wants you to figure this stuff out quite a lot. So try to not waste that time, or try to not reinvest that extra time or money into like dopamine frilled experience where we lose all the time, or we don't distinguish it in any way. Because basically what will happen is the universe will just keep freeing you up. So it'll start like taking some things away. It'll be like, okay, we don't want you doing this. We don't want you having this. We want you to have more time. So take some time in the first week to like maybe overlook a vista. I love the 3 of Wands in the year of 2022. It's like hiking. It's like, I don't know, flying in airplanes. It's like overlooking a grand abyss or vista and clicking a lot of stuff during that moment. So week number 2, you have the Devil rooted down by the 2 of Cups. Relationships that are unhealthy, like having unhealthy reliances on people. I'm seeing quite a few Capricorns do this, or being done this by another person. Like people might want to talk to you every day. People might be like, you need to call me every day. You might have a spouse that's like, where are you? Wanting to know like what you're doing. You could have people, I don't know, having a weird way of observing you. You could also see that your own responsibility like upsets other people too in the second week. Like I've seen this in my own experience too, where it's like people are off put by your like ethics or off put by your integrity, and they're like wanting you just to kind of like, I don't know, forgive them their responsibilities. So people are not wanting to be super responsible right now. So if you're like an integrity-based Capricorn and you're like enforcing the rules, like say you're like a business owner, you might want to be careful with this. I think this is a good piece of advice for my boss Capricorns is watch out for being, I don't know, too grim or too legalistic in your projection. It's kind of a weird advice. I'm not saying to like do anything weird, but you could see that your employees or your coworkers start to like trust you less or start to fear you because they think you're like too much of an enforcer or something. So they start to be less honest with you, or they start to look at you differently. Of course, maintain your ethics, integrity, and all of that stuff like in practice, but watch out for being like coming at people and being like, have you finished this work? Have you done this? Have you complied with these like contractual obligations? Because people might get like freaked out and they might like think that they can't like be human around you. So keep that in mind. I'm basically seeing that as the combination of energies there. And we all think like, okay, if I'm like the obligated employee or employer, if I'm the perfect student, if I'm the perfect producer, people will respect me and my moral integrity will grow. And that second part is true, but the first part, the people respect, might also be weird because we're in a very strange ethical time right now where people fear certain enforcement. So keep that in mind. Week number 3, Queen of Swords rooted down by the 9 of Swords. We start to get into a bit of a mind warp there, don't we? Where it's like, well, what about fairness? What about justice? What about obligations? What about the way that things have always worked? Yeah, there's a bit of a change there, isn't there? There's a bit of a shift in collective consciousness around task execution or management. And also changing the theme here a little bit. I do think some of you are overworking, or some of you are focusing too much energy in the mind. So overactive third eye or crown chakra. I mean, that's again, I'm planning to make a full video about this in May or perhaps June, depending on my schedule. But I do think your crown chakra, in fact, Capricorn, as a sign, has a bit of an overactive crown chakra right now from when Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto were in your sign. It crowned you, but it put a lot of energy up there above you. And it's kind of like not moving past the heart. So it's possible for Capricorns to be like in celibacy right now. It's possible for Capricorns to be like also in really restrictive diets or really restrictive creative pursuits as well, like only thinking about money, only thinking about contracts, only thinking about paperwork. Okay, it's all like stuck up in the mind and it's not as creative. So pay attention to that here. and think about any changes you might want to make there to have more of a human experience. Because I'm basically, this entire reading or this entire month is evocative to me of someone who's really stuck in the mind or really stuck in the head area of the body. Week number 4, Eight of Wands, you're down by the Tower. It's going to change. It's going to become more about the body, and it's going to become more about your grounding. So do think about that, and think about the way in which you can let abundance dismantle your current regime. That's the best way to word it. Because it's like you want abundance and you want to build more, but you have a certain regime implementation in your life that is actually blocking abundance, or in a way obligating you out of abundance. It's odd. Like, being so monetarily focused or being such an accountant ends up creating a smaller account, or being so focused on contracts, or even like positive work environment creates an environment of like hyper control or tyranny. It's weird how this works, but it's within the Capricorn archetype. So the key here is a freer experience. The key here is less thumbing through, less looking things over, less looking through everything, or trying to like impose new policies, okay? Or if you have like employees or something, this is more of a time of like letting them be their own ecosystem, or letting your workforce figure things out themselves, or letting your also budgets or ideas or new projects have a life of their own, rather than being that very managerial person. Because literally you're about to get a lot. Capricorn's Eight of Wands, 4th week. I think you're going to get a catalyst experience, or like 8 catalyst experiences in the 4th week of May. And it's going to probably take you out of like the excess time or something that you have to like really try to control things, or really try to like implement certain shifts and parameters of your material experience. And what's going to happen is you might have a complete like collapse of the previous implementation in your life, again, whether this is work, career, finance, whatever. And it's because you get so much that it falls through. And it's a wonderful thing that's happening there, but you almost want to think about like how that happened. Like, wow, actual abundance totally destroyed my previous attempt at creating abundance. What does that mean? Like, am I previously looking to abundance from an angle of lack, or from an angle of poverty in some way? So that's where we want to really see the mental shift, is like, okay, I understand that abundance is more about being given, or more about reception, than it is about control, or it is about implementation of certain controls. Okay, so that's probably where I'm going to end it for you this month, Capricorn. Try not to be too controlling. Try to let things come to you, and try to also understand what the universe is naturally trying to like dismantle in your life, because that would be a very keen pointing out by the universe of like, okay, that is actually a poverty implement. That's not an abundance implement. So let's talk more about that in your extended reading on Patreon. I'll talk about switching into an abundance mentality, and I'll talk about realizing also when the universe is pointing certain things out to be kind of, reworked in a more abundant way. So that will be linked below and in the center of your screen now on Patreon. You get all of the readings, all of the extended readings, just with the one membership, and weekly forecasts as well that are only available over there. I think it's a very, very valuable service, so come check it out if you haven't yet. Have a great month, Capricorns. Bye.